Country music star Randy Travis. He suffered a stroke last night at a hospital in Texas.
Randy Travis, the legendary voice behind some of country music's most heartfelt ballads, has always been known for his quiet strength and smooth vocals. But behind the calm demeanor lies a man who has experienced the industry's ups and downs and isn't afraid to speak his mind. In a rare and revealing moment, Travis reportedly opened up about the darker side of his journey, naming 5 fellow artists who left him with bitter memories. From behind-the-scenes feuds to creative clashes and personal betrayals, the truth may shock fans and critics alike. So, who made Randy Travis's most hated list, and why? Join us in this video as we unpack all the details. When country royalty clashed behind the curtain, Randy Travis is a name that echoes through the halls of country music history. With a voice that defined a generation, he earned his spot as one of Nashville's most respected legends. But like many stars, his journey hasn't been without storms. Over the years, Randy faced personal battles, most notably a string of drunk driving arrests and a life-threatening illness that shook fans and fellow artists alike. After surviving his health scare and beginning a slow but determined recovery, Travis reportedly started exploring ways to reconnect with audiences and perhaps relaunch his music career. That's when whispers began to circulate. According to a report from Showbiz Spy, Randy's team allegedly reached out to Taylor Swift, the reigning queen of pop country, for a potential duet. But, to everyone's surprise, she reportedly declined. The report claimed an unnamed source close to Travis said, "Randy is desperate to get his career back on track. He has had his people reach out to Taylor Swift about a possible duet, but she said no." Another unnamed source, allegedly tied to Swift, added, "Taylor is steering well clear of Randy. She knows about all his troubles. She can't be associated with someone like that." Now, it's important to note that none of this has been confirmed by Swift, Travis, or their teams. But, if true, it hints at a quiet tension between two eras of country fame. Not necessarily hate, but perhaps a missed connection, shaped by reputation, timing, and the high stakes of public image. Meanwhile, others in the music world didn't hesitate to support Travis. Hollywood legend Jon Voight took time during the George Jones tribute show to offer heartfelt words for the ailing singer, calling for a human chain of love in Randy's honor. It was a reminder that, despite his struggles, Travis is still deeply cherished by many in the industry. So, while Taylor Swift may have kept her distance, the story isn't so much about enemies, it's about image, timing, and how even legends sometimes face doors that won't open. Aside from Taylor Swift, who might likely now be in Randy Travis's Black Book, who else might have fallen under this category? Keep watching to find out. The silent rivalry, Randy Travis and Reba McEntire. To the world, Randy Travis and Reba McEntire were the ultimate symbols of country music's golden era. Two megastars who seemed to share a spotlight with ease and grace. They performed together, presented awards, and stood shoulder to shoulder as Nashville royalty. But behind that outward concord was a quieter, more nuanced story of unspoken competitiveness and professional conflict. Randy was known for his devotion to the sincere simplicity of classic country music. But Reba was a force of change. She was ambitious, aggressive, and ferociously business-savvy, branching out from music to television, Broadway, and even launching her own product lines. As Reba's brand grew and broadened, many saw her as the future of country music, a performer who could cross genres without breaking herself. Randy found the developing dominance difficult to see. He didn't disrespect Reba. On the contrary, he admired her voice, assertiveness, and grit. But each success she stacked onto her empire seemed to edge him further out of country music's ever-shifting center stage. Industry insiders noticed the subtle signs. At one award ceremony in the 90s, Reba swept the categories while Randy walked away empty-handed. Backstage, observers recall him standing silently off to the side, his expression tight as Reba glided past, surrounded by congratulations. A longtime collaborator once shared that Randy, half joking, had muttered, "She's not just winning awards, she's taking over the whole damn industry." The tension ran deeper than accolades. It was about philosophy. While Reba accepted change by changing her music, image, and marketing strategy, Randy remained true to his heritage. He regarded country music as sacrosanct, not to be interfered with. Reba's pop-influenced successes struck him as a departure from honesty. Though he never criticized her publicly, those close to him say he'd quietly grumble when her crossover songs dominated the radio. One notable instance of their quiet friction came at a charity event where both were slated to perform. Last-minute changes pushed Reba into the headlining slot, nudging Randy's performance earlier. Though he appeared cordial on stage, he reportedly confided backstage. Funny how some people always end up on top no matter what. Yet, for all his private frustrations, Randy never held personal resentment toward Reba. His struggle wasn't with her. It was with the unpredictable tides of fame and the evolution of an industry that didn't always reward staying true to tradition. He respected her resilience and influence, but watching her become more than just a star, an institution, made him feel marginalized in a society he helped create. It was a rivalry based on heartache rather than malice. Two icons, each carving its own path, one by adapting, the other by holding strong, both fashioned by a genre large enough to accommodate both of them, but not always fair in how it shines its light. The list goes on with singers Randy Travis hated the most. Stay tuned to find out more. Randy Travis versus Garth Brooks, the quiet clash of country titans. Randy Travis and Garth Brooks were both regarded by fans as country music giants, with voices that defined entire generations. However, behind the scenes, the relationship between these two titans was anything but pleasant. What appeared to be professional respect on stage was actually years of silent friction, as two very different visions for country music met. When Garth Brooks first appeared on the scene in the early 1990s, he didn't simply make waves, he changed the genre. His high-energy performances, dramatic flair, and large-scale stadium tours transformed country music into a spectacle. Suddenly, the genre that had thrived on simplicity and sorrow songs was overrun with pyrotechnics, choreographed productions, and pop-infused melodies. Garth became the face of this new commercialized country, personable, appealing to crossover audiences, and impossible to ignore. Randy Travis saw the transition as a betrayal. Randy had earned a reputation as a traditionalist. His music was honest, emotive, and steeped in the traditions of classic country, with no gimmicks or flair. Just stories told with soulful vocals and steel string guitars. Watching the industry embrace Garth's kind of arena-sized entertainment touched a nerve. Randy saw it as more than just a stylistic shift. It was a reworking of the genre's core soul. While Garth welcomed stardom, charming talk show hosts, and climbing pop charts, Randy stayed true to his music's moral and emotional core. He sought sincerity over plaudits, and Garth's ascension felt like the genre was moving too far away from its roots. The confrontation was not loud or public. It was quiet, yet sharp. Insiders mentioned icy shoulders and short sidesteps at industry events. At one awards show, Randy was seen giving Garth a stiff handshake, barely making eye contact. Backstage, he was known to avoid conversations with Garth altogether, preferring instead to keep his distance from the whirlwind of charisma that surrounded the younger star. Their rivalry was more than just style. It was about legacy. Garth represented a future in which country music was global, flashy, and unpredictable. Randy represented the past, steadfast, soulful, and profoundly rooted in tradition. The conflict between them reflected a larger fight within the genre, that between evolution and preservation, spectacle and substance. And while they never openly condemned one another, the unspoken schism between Randy Travis and Garth Brooks spoke volumes about the shifting nature of country music, as well as the anguish that can occur when the ground shifts beneath even the most legendary of artists. While the audience observed polite applause and professional smiles, Randy Travis's genuine sentiments concerning Garth Brooks' rise were carefully hidden between the lines of his interviews. He never mentioned names, but his remarks provided a clear picture. Randy frequently discussed the changing tone of country music, using terms such as losing its soul or forgetting its roots. For those who understood the context, it was clear that these were subtle barbs at the Garth Brooks era. One of the most telling moments of this quiet conflict came during the 1992 Country Music Association Awards. Garth dominated the night, taking home Entertainer of the Year, Album of the Year, and several other honors, awards that Randy, still at the height of his powers, had quietly hoped to win. He sat in the crowd, clapping along with the audience, but those close to him later recalled the flicker of tension in his face. As Garth bounded up the steps, oozing charm and thanking his team with well-rehearsed enthusiasm, Randy's jaw tightened ever so slightly, a small tell in a night full of spotlights. Despite the competition, there was no public feud. Both men maintained a surface-level respect, never criticizing each other outright in interviews or the press. But behind closed doors, Randy didn't hide his frustrations. To trusted friends and collaborators, he'd express his unease, not with Garth personally, but with what Garth symbolized: a shift in country music from storytelling and simplicity to showmanship and spectacle. Randy believed that this was not about ego or honors. It was about identity. Country music had given him everything, and he believed in upholding its traditions. He became disillusioned as he watched it morph into something flashier and more commercial. The genre was spreading, but Randy felt it was also drifting. Their silent competition evolved into more than just two performers with opposing styles. It became a symbol of the tug-of-war inside country music itself. Randy Travis served as the emotional anchor, a firm voice from the past. Garth Brooks was the tidal wave that reshaped the future. And, while Randy never said it aloud, those who knew him best could see it in his eyes. Garth Brooks was more than just another rising star. He represented a transformation Randy was unable to accept. If Randy Travis and Garth Brooks had a silent rivalry, who else do you think might have clashed with him as well? Let's find out. The Choir Boy and the Outlaw, Randy Travis versus Travis Tritt. If Randy Travis was the reverent choir boy of country, Travis Tritt was the outlaw crashing the church picnic with a 6-string and a smirk. Their musical worlds couldn't have been further apart, one soaked in gospel and grace, the other drenched in grit and rebellion. And yet, both were undeniably country. That's what made their rivalry so magnetic and so combustible. When Tritt exploded onto the scene in the early 90s, he came with a sound that shook the foundations. Mixing Southern rock with honky-tonk bravado, he charged onto stages with electric guitar licks, raspy vocals, and lyrics that toasted to beer, broken hearts, and boot-stomping freedom. For Randy, who built his legacy on introspective ballads and spiritual undertones, it felt like an affront. Tritt's style didn't just break the rules, it lit them on fire. Things got especially tense when their tours overlapped. On the same bill, the difference was stark. Tritt would leave the crowd buzzing, drenched in sweat and Southern rock energy. Then Randy would step up, smooth, composed, dialing the mood back to something sacred. Fans may not have known it, but backstage, the air could get frosty. Randy reportedly vented to his crew more than once that Tritt's arena-style theatrics were dragging country music away from its roots. The most infamous clash came during a mid-90s festival. Both stars were headliners, but disputes over stage placement and set time turned things sour. Tritt wanted fireworks and a light show. Randy wanted authenticity. According to one crew member, Randy scoffed at a promoter. "If I wanted to open for Bon Jovi, I'd call him myself." It was a line that echoed in country circles for years. Their philosophical differences even bled into interviews. In one joint sit-down, Randy lamented the genre's growing obsession with spectacle. "Country's about stories, not stunts," he said quietly, but everyone in the room knew who the comment was meant for. Tritt just grinned and shot back, "I don't know. I think having a good time never hurt anybody. Maybe some folks should give it a try." Still, beneath the sparring, there was something deeper: respect. They were two artists who loved the same music, just not the same way. Randy may have seen Tritt as too loud, too flashy, but he also saw the fire. And Tritt, for all his bravado, never took a swipe at Randy's voice, his songwriting, or his place in the genre's history. Their feud wasn't built on pettiness, it was built on passion. Two men on opposite shores of the same river, each convinced that their current carried the soul of country music. But is it over yet? Or is there still anyone else to top the list? Keep watching to find out. When Idols Fall. Randy Travis and the Heartache of George Jones. For Randy Travis, no name loomed larger in his world than George Jones. Known as the Possum, Jones wasn't just a country icon. He was the voice that shaped Randy's dreams. As a young boy, Randy had worn out George's records, mimicking that haunting vibrato, soaking in the heartbreak, the soul, the grit. George wasn't just an influence, he was a god. So when Randy's own star began rising in the mid-1980s, he never shied away from naming George as one of his biggest inspirations. Their first meeting backstage at an award show was a surreal moment for Randy. There stood the legend, warm, gracious, even playful, welcoming him like family. For a moment, the lines between fan and peer blurred beautifully. But that awe wouldn't last forever. As Randy stepped deeper into the world he had once only admired from afar, the cracks in George's myth began to show. Everyone in Nashville knew the stories of George's drinking, his disappearances, his demons. But Randy saw it up close. He saw how chaos trailed behind George like a shadow, even into the studio. And for someone as disciplined and focused as Randy, it was a hard truth to swallow. There's one story his inner circle still tells, quietly, with a sigh. In the early 90s, Randy and George were scheduled to record a duet. For Randy, it was the pinnacle, a dream finally coming to life. But when the day arrived, George was hours late. And when he did stumble in, he was in no condition to sing. Randy waited, tried to stay patient. But eventually, without drama or a scene, he picked up his things and left. Later, he told friends, "I wanted to stand beside my hero in that booth, but not like this." It wasn't just personal disappointment. It became a professional dilemma. Randy's clean-cut image clashed hard with George's volatile one, and while the respect never disappeared, the shine certainly did. The idol had fallen, not completely, but just enough to remind Randy that even legends are human. Still, in interviews and public tributes, Randy always spoke with admiration for George's music. Because at the end of the day, despite the flaws and frustrations, George Jones was the reason Randy Travis picked up a microphone in the first place. And maybe that's the hardest part of loving your heroes. You don't just inherit their songs, you inherit their scars, too. Randy Travis had always seen country music as something sacred, something worth honoring, polishing, and presenting to the world with dignity. That was his mission. He wore suits on stage, kept his personal life quiet, and treated each performance as a responsibility. He wasn't just singing songs, he was carrying a tradition on his back. George Jones, on the other hand, was the beautiful disaster. With a voice that could tear your heart out and a lifestyle that could burn it down, he lived the stereotype that Randy was trying to rise above. While George's raw, wounded performances moved audiences to tears, his erratic behavior and public struggles often reinforced the image of country artists as unreliable and chaotic. And Randy wanted better for the genre. In interviews, he chose his words with care, but the subtext was there. He'd talk about the need for professionalism, about showing up on time, about treating one's talent like a gift, not a given. Insiders understood what he meant. These weren't just general reflections, they were quiet laments aimed at George. Not with spite, but with sorrow. Because Randy didn't just respect George, he loved him. He wanted to see him rise above the demons, to take the throne he so richly deserved and wear it with grace. The disappointment came not from ego, but from that deeply human place where admiration meets reality and loses. Still, Randy never took cheap shots. He never aired dirty laundry. No matter how bitter the moments behind closed doors, in public, he held the line. George was a legend, and Randy treated him like one. That's what made the whole thing so tragic. It wasn't a rivalry fueled by competition. It was heartbreak in slow motion. A young man who once played George's records on repeat now watches his hero unravel before him. Not with anger, but with the ache of someone who simply wanted more. For George, for the music, and for the legacy they were both trying to protect. Beyond all these names and rivalries, how did Randy Travis change country music? Let's find out. The quiet storm that changed country music. By the time most artists are just hitting their stride, Randy Travis had already changed the game. Born Randy Bruce Trawick on May 4, 1959, he didn't just become a star. He became a symbol. A quiet storm that redefined what it meant to be country at a time when the genre was drifting further from its roots. Randy's breakthrough came in 1986 with Storms of Life, an album that didn't just sell, it roared. Triple platinum. It wasn't flash or flair that made it work. It was the deep timbre of his baritone voice, the aching simplicity of his lyrics, and a musical style that brought country back home. At a time when pop country hybrids dominated the airwaves, Randy made tradition sound fresh again. Songs like On the Other Hand and Forever and Ever, Amen weren't just hits. They were declarations. his partnership with producer Kyle Lanning and songwriters like Paul Overstreet and Don Schlitz became one of the most fruitful in country music history. Each track they crafted together wasn't just polished, it was purpose-driven. Randy didn't chase trends, he set a standard. As his mainstream popularity began to wane in the late 1990s, Randy pivoted rather than faded. He moved toward gospel, not out of desperation, but devotion. Albums under Word Records, like Rise and Shine, showed that his voice and his message still resonated. In fact, his gospel turn earned him even more acclaim, including multiple Dove Awards and continued Grammy recognition. Songs like Three Wooden Crosses blurred the line between the sacred and the radio hit, proving Randy's artistry could cross genres without compromise. Through it all, Randy remained a cornerstone of the neo-traditional country movement, a genre correction that brought steel guitars, fiddles, and storytelling back to the forefront. His influence echoes in every artist who dares to slow things down, to let a lyric breathe, to honor the roots instead of reinventing the wheel. He may not have been the flashiest, the loudest, or the most controversial voice in country music, but Randy Travis was the anchor. And anchors don't drift, they hold the line. So, what challenges and troubles did Randy Travis face through his journey? Keep watching to find out. A voice silenced, a spirit unbroken. On July 6, 2013, life changed forever for Randy Travis. What began as a routine hospital visit for breathing trouble spiraled into a fight for survival. Diagnosed initially with walking pneumonia, Randy's condition worsened rapidly overnight. By the next morning, he could barely breathe. When he was rushed back to the hospital, doctors discovered both of his lungs had filled with fluid, and then his heart stopped. Flatlining on the table, Randy was brought back by doctors who placed him on life support. The diagnosis was grim, a viral heart infection called cardiomyopathy. The infection had likely taken hold weeks earlier, while Randy had been filming in an old Louisiana feed store. But the most devastating blow came 2 days later, when doctors discovered he had also suffered a massive stroke. As the medical team prepared for life-saving surgery, Randy's wife, Mary, was faced with an impossible choice. Doctors gave her no hope, just a 1% to 2% chance that he would survive. But for Mary, that sliver was everything. At this point, the 1% to 2% chance is 100% chance over zero, she told the Tennessean. She prayed for anything, any form, any outcome, if it meant keeping her husband alive. The surgery was successful, but the road ahead was grueling. Randy spent nearly 6 months in hospitals, endured 3 tracheotomies, 2 brain surgeries, and battled one infection after another. His body was broken, but his will and Mary's held strong. Finally, after a change in doctors and a powerful new antibiotic, Randy returned home in November 2013, just in time for Thanksgiving. But the stroke had left deep scars. Randy was diagnosed with aphasia, a condition that affects the brain's language centers. Doctors warned that improvement would be unlikely, but Randy defied that prognosis too. Day by day, word by word, Randy began to find his voice again, slowly, stubbornly. Mary later shared that he continued to speak a new word or 2 words put together every day. While conversation remains a challenge, one miracle stood out above all. Randy could still sing. In 2016, at his induction into the Country Music Hall of Fame, the crowd fell silent as Randy Travis stood at the podium. And then, in a moment that stopped time, he sang a verse of Amazing Grace. Not just a song, but a declaration. he was still here. How was Randy Travis able to triumph over these challenges and come back stronger? Stay tuned to find out. The comeback of a lifetime. Randy Travis may have faced a life-altering stroke, but retirement was never in his vocabulary. Just a year after his near-death experience, he re-emerged with Influence Volume 2, The Man I Am, an album he had recorded before his stroke in 2012. It wasn't just a release. It was a quiet reminder that his music and his spirit were still very much alive. In 2016, that message grew louder. At the Country Music Hall of Fame induction ceremony, Randy stunned audiences with a powerful performance of Amazing Grace. It was his first time singing in public since the stroke, and though just one verse, it felt like a full-circle moment, proof that even silence couldn't keep a voice like his down for long. 3 years later, in 2019, Randy made another bold move. He announced a return to the road. With guest vocalist James Dupree stepping in to handle lead vocals, the tour allowed fans to reconnect with Randy's legacy, while he made select appearances throughout the show. As of 2025, that tour continues, offering audiences the chance to see a living legend who refuses to fade away. His recovery has been remarkable. Though he still uses a walker or wheelchair for mobility, and Mary often assists him during interviews and events, Randy's strength is evident. Each appearance, each step, each word, hard-earned and full of meaning. Then, in May 2024, Randy stunned the world once again. With the help of artificial intelligence, he released his first new single in over a decade, Where That Came From. The track debuted at number 45 on Billboard's country airplay chart, but the numbers didn't tell the whole story. It was the emotional weight behind the release that moved people most. Mary recalled the moment Randy first heard the finished song. He was surprised, then pensive, just listening and studying. And then he put his head down, and his eyes were a little watery. I think he went through every emotion there was in those 3 minutes of just hearing his voice again. The journey continued in 2025 with news that had fans buzzing. A feature film about Randy's life was officially in the works. Titled Forever and Ever, Amen, the biopic will star actor and singer Walker as Randy, with both Randy and Mary serving as executive producers. This is what we prayed for, Mary told People, for somebody who would tell Randy's life story just as he lived it. Slated for a 2026 theatrical release, Forever and Ever, Amen is more than a movie. It's a tribute to resilience, faith, love, and a legacy that not even a stroke could silence. Even after the devastating stroke in 2013 left him with limited speech, Randy Travis refused to let silence define him. Where many might have seen an end, Randy saw a new beginning, one shaped by technology, determination, and the unwavering support of those around him. Thanks to advancements in artificial intelligence, Randy has been able to breathe life back into his music. Engineers used archived recordings of his voice to train AI models that could replicate his signature sound with stunning accuracy. The result? New music that feels hauntingly familiar, echoing the depth and soul that made him a legend in the first place. It's not just a technical feat, it's a triumph of spirit. For fans, hearing his voice again has been nothing short of emotional. But Randy hasn't relied solely on machines. Despite his speech challenges, he's continued to perform, delivering one of the most powerful moments of any show. The final Amen of his beloved hit, Forever and Ever, Amen. Whether it's on tour or at special appearances, Randy saves that last word for himself. A raw, heartfelt reminder that he's still here, still singing, still standing, During the Grand Ole Opry's 100th birthday celebration in March 2025, that single word, sung in harmony with Carrie Underwood, brought the house to tears. In that moment, Randy didn't just perform. He reclaimed his voice, his legacy, and his place on the stage. So, what are your thoughts on the singers that made it to Randy Travis's hate list? And do you think there could be more? Let us know in the comments section below. Thank you for watching this video. We hope you found it interesting. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the next video shown on your screen to catch up on your favorite celebrity stories. See you there.